All right, itty bitty committee. We've made it to fucking, what is it, November now. So another month gone. I hope you enjoyed all the spooky theme shit we did for October. I'm kind of glad it's done. It was fun. It was different, but I think I learned to stay in my lane a little bit. So yeah, we're done with the spooky stuff. And my guest this week, we're gonna talk sports. So my guest is Jimmy Simonis from the Sports Avenue podcast. So he's gonna come on and we're gonna talk a little bit about different stuff. I think we talked mostly NFL. We recorded the podcast a little while ago. So yeah, we talk mostly NFL, but we do get into some other sports stuff as well. So I was very happy to have him on. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you subscribe, rate, review, share. Make sure that you're telling all your friends to check out the show and check us out, on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Choice Nugs only, or sorry, ittybittypodcast.com. And just make sure that you're checking out the show and telling people about it. But remember, this is not a sports podcast. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's anything but, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. It's the Itty Bitty Podcast. The Itty Bitty Podcast.
All right. Episode, well, I don't know which episode this will be, so I'm not going to say it, but another episode of the Itty Bitty Podcast, a new week, new guest. This week, we're talking football. My guest is Jimmy. Jimmy, what's your last name? I should have asked you right before. Simonis, okay. I should have asked you right before that. This is the level of professionalism you get on the Itty Bitty Podcast, but I'm going to put this phone here real quick. Just get that set down there. So this week in the NFL, there was a Monday night game that just happened. My New England Patriots played the Jets. So I'm wondering, since you're a new guest on the Itty Bitty Podcast, I don't really know much about you. What's your NFL team, and or what teams are you liking right now, and what teams have you been watching, I guess?
I'm a Browns fan, so it's been an up and down season to say the least. Teams I've been watching, the Packers. What they did during the offseason, I thought was great. They got Zadarius Smith, they got Preston Smith, drafted Darnell Savage, signed Adrian Amos. They loaded up on defense. They got a lot of talent. I'm a big fan. I think the Packers got a good system going on. They just beat the Raiders, who I also thought is another team that surprised me this year too.
Is that you or me?
3-3.
Do you hear that? I don't know where that's coming from. I think we're good for right now. Sorry.
No, you're good.
If you want to
restart?
We don't have to restart. It's cool. If you want to just go back to what you were saying. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. No, you're good. No worries. Yeah. So I'm a big fan. I was talking about the Browns, Packers, the Raiders. I think the Raiders are one of the most surprising teams I've seen this year because they're 3-3 after the debacle that was Antonio Brown, and they're moving forward. Yeah. I think the team's been rather impressive. I know they took a beating against the Packers this past week, but I think the team has a lot going for them. I really do.
Yeah. The Raiders, I mean, they made a couple of off-season moves that a lot of people didn't really think would be smart, like the Khalil Mack. That was last season, though, right? That was last season, yes. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the start of their rebuilding, was when they got rid of Khalil Mack. I'm friends with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For a Patriots fan, I have way too many Raiders friends, so I have to listen about Raiders stuff all day. So you're a Browns fan, though?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year so far.
Yeah. What do you think of Baker?
I've been trying to. So I'm a fan of Baker. I wasn't a fan of him when in college because I was an OSU fan, or I'm an OSU fan. So when he planted the flag, wasn't a big fan of him. But when I got to see his personality, I like it. I think it's the right attitude for football. I I think it does have a Brett Favre-esque attitude. He wants to make every throw.
He's a
Thing is,
gunslinger for sure.
exactly. But when it comes to being a gunslinger, you're going to make stupid throws. You're seeing a lot of that this year. It's almost like his rookie year has been this year, and
Right.
it's almost like he's matured in the opposite way. He's making some interesting decisions when he's throwing the ball. I don't know if it's based on the scheme of the new head coach with Freddie Kitchens or what's going on, but there are just some things that I didn't expect from him going into this year.
I know my wife would like it if he would throw the ball to Odell Beckham a lot more. She has him
Yeah,
in fantasy.
yeah. I mean, I like Odell, but I don't know. I think that Freddie almost had too much on it. He had too many cooks in the kitchen. I think the offense was efficient last year, but you didn't have all that talent.
Right.
Like Jarvis Landry, Rashard Higgins, Antonio Callaway was productive at moments. Derek Willis until he got hurt.
You got Njoku.
I mean, there was a lot of guys. Njoku.
Mhm.
Njoku was inconsistent, which I think for a guy like him, he has to be consistent catching the
Right.
ball because he is not a blocking tight end. That's the difference between being a good tight end and a great tight end. If you for guys like Jimmy Graham, they're not going to block for you.
Right.
They got to catch the ball.
And,
if they can't catch the ball
he's mostly
consistently-
touchdown or bust these days.
Yeah, that's what the league is going to. Granted, you do have guys like George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Gronkowski, even that they were able to produce big games. But when I look at Njoku, I don't expect him to put up these 10 receptions, 200-yard games. I expect him to go 5 for 65 with a couple touchdowns.
Mm. So, looking forward, you're a Browns fan. What would you like to see them do going forward if they make it to the playoffs this season, they win a couple games, best case scenario, they win the Super Bowl. What would you like to see them do in the off season, despite whatever happens this season?
So what I think how the result of this season should go is I think if they go 9-7, I want to see them at least battle for the playoffs. I think they have to. I know they do have a solid or more of a favorable second half schedule. So I think for them, they got to get some wins. They've been good against bad teams, but against the good teams, they struggle. I think right now for the trade deadline, they have to get an offensive lineman. I think left tackle specifically, or I just think something on the line. I don't even know if it's about left tackle. I think if you get someone on the right side to help. I don't know if Cush is the answer. He's more of a short term. He was more of the relief guy because Corbett didn't pan out, and that's why he went to LA. Hubbard's been struggling. I think, honestly, if you look to get a right guard or right tackle, I think that should be more of their priority. Also, I like the Steve Wilkes defense, but they're lacking consistency in terms of tackling, which I do understand in the sense that they mainly run a nickel formation, which is 2 linebackers. So you're expecting your front 4 or your defensive line to fill up the gaps so your linebackers and secondary get one-on-one matchups with the runner. And so far, the Browns have struggled with tackling. I don't know for why, but with Williams last year, they sucked at tackling. This year, they've been awful at tackling. I think they're like in the top 5 for most missed tackles this year already.
I feel like that's a problem throughout the league, though. There's a lot of missed tackles.
That's another completely different conversation. That when you talk about football, that hitting's not the same. These guys are still trying to adjust to guys that are so fast that they have to try and tackle them, and change themselves last minute. Because if they hit them high, they're getting fined, getting flagged, and getting ejected. But I think for the Browns, I think I like the defense. I think the linebacking core is good. I do think they need to add another person because Kirksey got hurt. Taki and Wilson, they're still young. They're only rookies, so they have to develop. You have to decide if you want to resign Schobert. Do you want to pay all that money? When in reality, all these people that you do pay are going to hit into the salary cap, and they're going to hinder Myles Garrett, Baker, Chubb, Jarvis, Odell, Antonio Callaway, Rashard Higgins. These guys paychecks that are critical. Not to mention, if you do get a good offensive lineman, let's just say Trent Williams, he's one of the highest paid tackles in the league. So you're going to have to pay him a lot more money if his contract goes up. So it's about being able to manage that salary cap. Because if you look at the Rams, they sold their soul for Jalen Ramsey, getting rid of all those draft picks.
Right.
They're already pretty tough in the cap. So like again, the Rams have sold themselves to the devil and saying we don't care about the future, we want to win now. Which I don't know with Jared Goff, but the same thing with the Browns. Can they manage and build a steady system instead of throwing all their eggs in one basket and hoping for the best?
Yeah. There's a lot of money going around the league these days. We've seen a lot of trades happening this last week. We just saw Mohamed Sanu go to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Who else did we see go? We saw somebody else just go. There's another big trade.
Emmanuel Sanders went to the 49ers.
Yeah.
Then Quandre
49ers.
Diggs went to the safety from the Lions. I forget where he went. Oh man. He went. Yeah, it was a pretty bad trade, I think, for the Lions because they got rid of their captain safety Quandre Diggs in a 7th-round pick for a 5th-round pick. It was a kind of interesting trade considering the value of the safety they had. And their secondary isn't the strongest to begin with.
Yeah. So I guess we switch topics a lot here on the Itty Bitty podcast. We're going to talk football for sure. I just wanted to talk a little bit about maybe tell my listeners, I guess, a little bit about yourself and kind of. I know you do more than just football stuff. I know you're into basketball and you're just kind of an all-around sports guy. So if you want to talk a little bit about your podcast and kind of what you talk about and stuff on your show, I'd love for you to kind of share that real quick.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for letting me share it. So the podcast I do is Sports Avenue. I try to use this as a platform for all players, athletes, coaches, pretty much anybody that's interested in sports in the sense that I want them to talk about their passion for it, their journey, what they've gone through. Like today, I just talked to someone that plays eSports, and I don't know. It's the cool perspective to get people that have done these things. They're doers of the sports industry and getting their experience. So that's what when I first started the podcast with my brother. It was a lot about just talking about sports, but I was just saying to myself, am I giving these people value? Then I relooked and I rethought about the process of trying to do this podcast, and I thought about like maybe if I bring people on that are doing doing stuff in the field that I think I'm passionate about, it'd be cool to kind of cover it and talk about the process about them because again, not everyone's going to interview Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Judge. LeBron James. Would you love to interview those guys? Of course, but they're also interviewing these people that they've went through the grit and grind as well, and giving the audience perspective on what these athletes, these coaches, they go through day in and day out, and just give them a different perspective instead of just hearing about the top. Talk about the grit and grind. Talk about what they've had to do, what they've had to sacrifice, their journey of becoming who they are. And I do like to have fun with it. Like I try to keep it relaxed, laid back, in the sense that they don't have to put on a persona. They just get to be them. They get to be their brand. I try to give it to them as this is their brand. This is their way of putting themselves out there. If they're an up and comer, like a lot of the more people I've been doing with or interviewing, and at the same time, I get the value in the sense that these people want to join my show, and I get the gratification that these people they're happy or grateful that I get to give them a platform to talk about.
So it's almost a mutual. You both gain something from it. So you get
I think it's what it should be, especially in this industry where it is so competitive in the sense that everyone wants to do a podcast nowadays to talk about their opinion. And the same with sports. You get to see these people on ESPN like First Take and Undisputed with Skip and Shannon, and all these people talk about sports. But that's kind of what I sparked it for me, because after I quit football sophomore year, I was kind of, and this was only 2 years ago. I'm only 18, so I just graduated high school. So I was kind of in this mode, or I was in this situation where I'm kind of like, what do I do for my career? Where do I go with this? And just this past January, my brother, he had a microphone. He did a couple podcasts previously, and they didn't turn out or he had a political podcast which didn't do well because political landscape is just a mess anymore. So he's like, hey, you want to do a podcast? I'm like, yeah, sure. Then we started getting ideas down. We started moving forward, and I just started broadcasting school this summer. So it's like it's been it's been allowing me to keep pushing and keep getting more ideas on how to expand this brand, the sports brand, and just being able to find new ways to make this more interactive with an audience, giving people a voice, and also giving athletes a voice as well, trying to give everyone a chance to be a part of something.
So, were you big into? I'm from Massachusetts originally. I live out on the
Okay.
West Coast now, but sports radio was big in Massachusetts. You know, there was a few different
Oh yeah,
stations that you
definitely.
could flip to. So, were you big into sports radio growing up, and is that what kind of piqued your interest in that as well?
A lot of it started when I would wake up, like watch ESPN in the mornings. You would see Trey and Wing or Mike and Mike. Um, some days when I wasn't at school, you would see Skip and Stephen A on First Take. And that though, when I first watched that, that was entertaining. It was cool because these people were like, when I'm sitting there as a kid saying like, these dudes get to yell at each other and talk about sports and get paid for it. I'm sitting there like, that's crazy. You know, how many jobs in the world can you do that? You know, there's just not many.
Right.
And then I'm not as much into radio as I was with like ESPN and stuff like that. Every now and again, I do watch Colin Coward. Guys that are kind of like in both. They do like TV and radio. But I like the visual aspect. I'm more of a visual person, so being able to see these people speak, like I'm not saying I'm not big into radio. It's just I prefer more of the visual aspect.
So, where do you usually get most of your sports news from?
Um, Growing up, it was ESPN. A lot of it right now, it would probably be like NFL, like using like NFL.com, pro
NFL.com.
football, yeah, NFL, like the sports, like the professional sites, but also pro baseball, pro football, um, pro basketball. Those sources are amazing. They give you so much information, so many statistics. They give you different aspects. I used to use Fangraphs because I blog too for the podcast as well,
Oh, nice.
and there's so much information that those reference websites give you. It's awesome. Like I learned so much. And also when you play video games, it's kind of weird. Like when I play like Madden and NBA and MLB, you kind of get to know these players. You get to, in a way, you get to know their strengths in a way. Like when you think of like Aaron Judge, this dude has like a 99 power and his contact's like 55 against righties. It's not a good way to judge, but at the same time you do, well, no pun intended, but you do get to see their strengths in a way.
Oh, dude, I was using Mahomes before he was, the starter on the Madden game. I started
Oh
using,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
I just knew from that. I'm like, this dude's gonna be a stud.
yeah, and not even that. Like when you saw him in college, his arm was otherworldly.
Yeah,
He has like baseball fundamentals because he did talk about like, a lot of his throwing motion does come from playing shortstop, and his dad was a pro baseball player. So it's like he has some fundamentals that are baseball like, and he's just transferred it into football. It's awesome watching him throw the football.
yeah. He's not hurt for too long, right? He's supposed to. They said it was a mild injury from what they first thought.
Well, the thing is, I don't know if you saw the video, but they put back in his kneecap because it was dislocated. Then I don't know if
No.
you saw the video. They popped it back in. He just started throwing today, but if I was him, like I know I'm not a professional athlete, but one bad leg, a bad leg injury can do a lot, especially for him because he loves to extend plays with his legs.
Right.
I mean, there's when he gets out of the pocket, like granted, he's got a great arm, but at the same time, a lot of his money is made, his highlight reel throws are made when he's on the run, getting out of the pocket. So for him, if he re-hurts his knee, that has to change. He has to change his style of throwing because he has to be a lot more quicker with the ball so he doesn't get hit.
Yeah, I was out on watching the injuries after was it Kevin Ware? Was that the college dude's name?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
the Louisville basketball player.
yeah.
That was awful, man.
I used to watch them all the time. I used to not enjoy them, but I could stomach them. But now I'm just like people. I have to see it by surprise in order to watch them. They don't. I can't do it
Oh
anymore.
yeah. Well, no, because it's something like when you're watching TV, it's not something you expect. Like you said, when you catch it on surprise, like it's like wow, you don't know how you feel so. It's a gruesome, and you don't wish it on anybody, but at the same time, it's like you're just sitting there, like you don't know what to do because you're only watching.
Right. Yeah. You just kind of get that feeling in the back in your stomach, that pit.
Yeah, it's like wow.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to watch. Another one that was bad was that college running back. I can't remember his name, and he got hit, and you just saw his leg going like 5 different directions, and you could just tell he was done. I can't remember his name though. It was a couple years back. I really can't remember his name, but it'll come to me at some point.
Oh, did he play for South Carolina by chance?
Possibly. I did.
Oh man, because I remember this guy from South Carolina. I remember he had a
He was
bad
a
leg injury.
stud. He
That
was a
kind of
stud running back, and it was really sad because
Marcus was it Marcus Lattimore?
I
No,
think yes,
Lattimore.
yeah, that was it.
Lattimore. Yeah,
That was it.
because he was on South Carolina. I remember he was an absolute stud in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then he had a bad knee or leg injury. Then he was
Yep.
he got into the NFL, but he just didn't do it. He got like a chance or two and just couldn't do anything.
Yeah. There was one thing, so I've been kind of taking notes because I knew at some point we would be doing this podcast. So I watch football every Sunday. We take the day and just hang out. And so one of the things that I've been noticing is challenging penalties.
hmm
So this makes absolutely no sense to me because it's almost like you're going to tell somebody that they've done something incorrect. Like, it's one thing to challenge a play where, you get it wrong, but you're basically telling a ref, no, your judgment was wrong on this play. So I feel like it's hard to get them to switch on that. I've only seen it happen like once or twice. I think we looked it up and it was like 6 times that it's happened all season.
If you're talking about those pass interference calls, I completely agree with you. They make no sense for having those challenged because they're not overturning them. Yeah, and you give a good perspective on that because it's like, why are they going to change their opinion?
Right.
And they get treated like crap anyways. They're only part-time employees. So in the whole scheme of things, it's a lose-lose situation for everybody because the refs, they know they're not getting the most out of what their job provides, and they're not going to be liked either way. Someone's going to hate them, and now it's just turning into everyone hates them.
Yeah. It slows the game down a lot too. That's what I noticed. If
Yeah.
you're stopping the
hmm
game, it's only a couple times, but it's an extra couple stoppages that you don't really need.
And the thing is, with the NFL, those couple stoppages turn into like 10 minutes because of the commercials. It's like, whoa, we'll be right back after the break. Then you have like a 5 to 10 minute, or not, it's more of an exaggeration, but it's like 5, 10 minutes go by of just watching commercials. Granted, NFL makes a lot of money on those, but it's like no one wants to watch that. You
Right.
want to watch the game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic because when you think about it, the game has been moving much faster with the athletes that they have. It's a lot more athletic, putting points up on the board. And it almost feels like the games are just going as slow because when you pass the ball a lot more drops, clock stops, going out of bounds. A lot of players run out of bounds now. They don't go look for the contact. The clock stops a lot more. So there's a lot more plays. There's a lot more scoring opportunities that are being provided by throwing the ball, running out of bounds, saving clock. So and all that in turn just slows the game down in more of the opposite effect. It just puts up more points.
Yeah. Speaking of running off the clock, we started to talk a little bit about the Monday Night Football game. So like I said, I'm a Pats fan. Grew up around New England, Brockton, Massachusetts, about 45 minutes or so from Patriots Stadium.
Right.
And so, where was I going with this? The Monday night game. So I wanted to talk about Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. That was a big thing that's been kind of circulating. Was Sam Darnold was mic'd up, and they're kind of pissed about it. But some people think that they should be pissed. Some people think that they shouldn't be pissed. I mean, what's your feeling on that? I feel like they kind of signed
Who
up for it.
who should be upset? I just want to make sure. I understand.
Well, I know Adam Gase was annoyed. I know Le'Veon Bell voiced some displeasure. I don't think Sam Darnold came out and said anything, but I know that at least the coach and Le'Veon Bell and some other people have been talking about it back and forth on social media about whether they should have aired him saying that he was seeing ghosts, against the Patriots defense, which looks absolutely beastly this year.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the mic'd ups are actually kind of cool. You get to see a perspective of these guys playing in the game. It's not like something they think about because they are mic'd up and they're in the zone. I don't know. I don't know if you can be upset about that because at the end of the day, Sam Darnold really just had a bad game. There's
Right.
really nothing else.
I feel like it's a real
You know?
moment for him. It's a real moment that he. So I
Yeah,
don't think they should get upset
exactly.
about
It,
that.
it it's candid about it's something candid. It's something I think as a fan you can appreciate. I don't understand if you're I mean if you're a fan and you're upset about it, it's like it doesn't make sense because you get to see these players in a humanized form in a way when they're not because when you think of these football players, they're just supernatural in one way or another. And when he's like, I'm seeing ghosts, it's like it humanizes them in the sense like this dude's just having a bad day,
Right.
and he's going against the Patriots. There's not much more else to say when you're going against one of the best defenses in the league. I mean, the defense this year for the Patriots has been absolutely mammoth.
Yeah, they look sick. So fourth quarter, I think it was like 33-0. The Patriots had the ball. Yeah, and they were about to punt. Did you see that? Did you hear about this whole thing where they ran off like an extra 90 seconds of the clock? They basically somehow they did it so they did a delay game, or was it a delay game? Yeah, it was a
Okay.
delay game. So they declined the penalty because they figured that it would
Okay.
push them back, whatever, so they get a longer punt. Declined it, so
Right.
the clock didn't stop. Resets the clock, starts running it down again. So instead of calling the delay a game again, they had one of the players, I think Brandon Bolden, intentionally false started instead of getting a second. What was it? It would have been a personal foul or something. Not personal foul. Uh, Unsportsmanlike conduct for second delay
Okay.
game in a row. And
Okay.
so the thinking was that he basically ran off an extra 90 seconds by doing this because they declined both penalties. And so they basically, just were running out the clock a little bit faster. But that was a side story that
Yeah.
I picked up on that I thought was pretty interesting that they did that. And Bill Belichick got a little smile out of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I didn't realize that's the meme that everyone's talking about where he's actually smiling during a football game. No, that's interesting because
Yeah.
I mean like you said flags, you don't I just think at the end of the day that's just good awareness. I mean, there's really nothing else to say besides that's just great awareness because
I think it just shows
I
how
mean Bill Belichick
smart he is, man. He's just such a smart football mind.
yeah, yeah, I mean there's no one else like him. I think he's like when you talk about like legendary head coaches, he has his own he's his own way. There's really not many that compare. Like when you think of Lombardi, Men's, they're the motivators, and you think of like, I would say Bill Walsh is, or like him and like Bill Belichick and Bill Walsh are similar. If you've watched his football life with Bill Walsh, they both have similar ways of evaluating talent, which I thought was rather interesting. Both very complex about the game. And when I think of Bill Belichick, I just think he knows every rule. He knows what to do at every situation. He prepares for literally every situation. He probably prepares for the third team special teams every week. I hated it growing up, but I've come to respect it because at the end of the day, he's done something that no really other coach can do, and that's just he's pretty much mastered the game, and it's just something that you don't see really anymore.
Yeah, I live out in the Seattle area, and it's a lot of those fans. Not all of them. I'm not going to put them all in the same bunch, but a lot of those fans, they like to yell cheaters a lot of the time. So I have to put up a lot of that, which is kind of
the thing is,
for me.
Like you said, everyone. I don't know if they're necessarily. I don't know enough. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know the whole story and stuff like that. You can make your own opinions, but last year during that Super Bowl when they pretty much destroyed the Rams offense, I came to respect I just came to respect it. Like again, being a Browns fan, Belichick was in Cleveland, could have won 6 Super Bowls with us, but with everything that happened in '99 or in '96, whatever year it was that they moved, it is what it is. He has created a system that no other coach, even within his own organization that's gone out and tried to do the same, can replicate. Just no one has done what he's done, and that's pretty much it. Everyone, like looking at the Patriots, it's like they're already a for sure lock to win the AFC. No one has shown that they can provide the consistency to even have a chance of breath against them. So yeah, it's what they've done is so crazy, and it's just I mean I've come to respect it.
Yeah, I mean, even with all the injuries, there's been a lot of injuries throughout this season for a lot of teams. But somehow the Patriots,
Primarily the old line for the Pats.
Yeah. they've had a few skill players here and there. Josh Gordon just got placed on IR. I think I just read.
Yep.
So he's done
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
while.
he did.
So yeah, it's tough when you get injuries mid-season, but the better teams usually rise to the top. So there was something else that I
Exactly.
wanted to talk about. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, you're all good.
So no, this was something that I had kind of noted. I didn't know if you had heard anything about this story, anything like that, but it was something Percy Harvin had been interviewed about, and he had said that when he played, he was stoned every day. So it was just something I had thought that was pretty funny. I didn't know that about him.
Yeah.
So that was something that's kind of on brand for our show. So I thought I'd bring that up for our listeners.
No, I completely understand.
The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and not interesting, but that threw me off the other day. I was watching football and watching the Seahawks game, and I saw DK Metcalf had a pacifier in his mouth. Have you seen these mouth guards? They look like a baby's pacifier.
Oh yeah, yeah, the things like it's just a mouth guard. Then you have like the big brick that's in their mouth.
Oh no! It's like a literal, like a baby's, like literally a baby's pacifier, like that you would, but it's a mouth guard. So he puts it in, so when it's in his mouth, it looks like he's got a baby's mouth. Yeah, if you get a chance, Google image DK Metcalf.
I gotta take a look at that.
I thought he had a
sense.
binky. I'm like, is this dude wearing a binky? And I had to look it up, and he's got a mouth guard that's molded, and it looks like a pacifier, a baby pacifier.
I wonder what the science is behind that, because that makes no sense to me, to be honest.
I think he just thinks it looks. I think he's trying to start a trend. I mean, I think he's kind of an oddball.
Good luck.
He showed up to Pete Carroll's office with no shirt on, wearing like a big chain or something like that when he first met Pete Carroll. So he's kind of an odd dude.
Best of luck.
I mean, if you market if you market those, if people start seeing you with those pacifiers, there'd be guys all over the league with those things.
I don't necessarily understand if you want to look like a baby on the field, but I mean, if it floats your boat, you might as well let it sail. So I don't know.
I just thought that was funny. I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's got a pacifier in his mouth. So
yeah, like they're grown men, you know. You don't think of things like that.
Yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. Yeah. So when you get a chance, take a look at that. Google image that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It'll make you laugh.
Yeah, definitely.
So the other thing I want to talk about, since we kind of mix it up here a little bit, do you attend different games and stuff frequently? Are you somebody who likes to watch the experience from home, or are you somebody that likes to kind of get out there and go check out games live?
Okay, I like that question, because so last year I went to the Browns game against the Ravens. It was week 5. It was when the Ravens lost to the Browns at home. Or the Browns beat the Ravens at home, let me rephrase, on a game-winning field goal. And honestly, that was the first time in a while that I've been to a Browns game where it was actually relatively full and people were actually excited to watch the Browns. When I was younger, my dad had season tickets and we would go all the time, and that's when they were like mediocre year after year with Romeo Crennel. The list goes on, and it's like it was different because, also noted, it's Hugh Jackson's last game he won, but it was an interesting atmosphere because, again, when you think of Cleveland Browns, you don't think of anything positive, and then they won the game, and it went crazy. I remember I took this video, and it was just the entire place. It was so weird, actually, when Greg Joseph made the field goal. He was on I was looking at actually, let me rephrase. The goalpost was the back of the goalpost was to me, and no one could tell if he made it or not. It was quiet for like 2 seconds, and then you see the refs put their hands up, and the stadium erupted. It was crazy. But back to your question. I like watching it from home because you do get to see see the game at a good angle. I think at least in terms of broadcasting, I do like the side view where you get to see everything pretty much going on. I mean, you probably don't see a safety. You usually don't see the safeties dropping back, but you do get to see a good perspective of the game, I think. And at least in terms of watching the game from I guess more of someone that's evaluating the game in a sense. I like that. But for the fan experience, I think going to the games are awesome. But again, not everyone has the money to go to these types of games. So it's give or take with both perspectives. I think if you're a fan, I think it's awesome to go to the games because then you get to meet all these people that are fans.
Yeah,
And you get, and
tailgating
it's
is
just
definitely fun too.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a unique experience that you can only go if you attend. Watching it from home, it more or less depends on like what your preferences are. If you want to watch the game and evaluate the game, I think in terms of angles or in terms of seeing the game as a whole, TV is the better option. But if you want to go as a fan, I would totally recommend going to the games if you have the money for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same way. I've gone to a few games myself, tailgated a few games. I've hosted parties here. I know that you're not old enough to go to like bars and stuff, but one of my favorite experiences we did was we were living in California at the time in Los Angeles, and there was a Patriots bar when they played in the Super Bowl. And so we went and watched them play there a couple times. I watched them lose there, and I went and watched them win against Seattle there. So, and that's always fun because there's people from back home there. So that's always a fun experience too.
And the thing is, that's cool with those is that that's your way of connecting with people in a sports community.
Right.
It's something that's so unique and something that you almost don't, you want to take for granted. It's just something that's so cool, and you don't get that with many other things. That's why I think it's so awesome with sports.
So, are you mostly? What's your favorite sport? If you had to pick, I know it's hard to pick one, but if you had to like rank them, like what do you make sure that you get out of bed for?
I would definitely say football. I would go baseball. I got into rugby last year, and let me tell you, it's a fun sport to play. I played it last year for the first time, and it's not what everyone mocks it up to be. If you give it a chance, I definitely recommend watching it. It's definitely a unique experience.
It's actually not the first time somebody said that to me this week. Somebody actually just was talking to me and showing me clips on YouTube.
Yeah, it's really cool. But the thing is, the United States doesn't broadcast it in a pretty easy way for you to access it, so it's kind of tough to watch it. But yeah, I would say football for sure. I mean, that's been my sport growing up. Baseball, it's kind of weird. I don't really like all the home runs and stuff like that. I like seeing the pitching duels. I like seeing the aces go at it. So that's how I like baseball. I'm more of an old school fan, I guess. I like seeing I like strategy behind these games. That's why I like Bill Belichick, because there's so much strategy behind everything he does. It's not just give me those athletes and let me do my thing. When there's strategy behind the sport, that's what makes you think. That's what makes you like want to know, and that's why I like football so much, because there's so much strategy behind it. It's not just about athletes. You got to be able to know your position too. I feel like with baseball, it's going more into the atmosphere of basketball, where it wants more athletes. But baseball, you can't teach like the coordination that these guys have. It's muscle memory, and what these guys do is completely insane. But so football, baseball. I gotta get more into rugby, but I will put it at 3. I'm not a big basketball fan, but I don't mind watching it. It's not bad every now and again. I do like watching boxing. I would say boxing, then basketball. So football, baseball, rugby, boxing, basketball. I don't know enough about hockey to, I guess, make a judgment on it, because I would like to learn more about it. Because I do think it's an interesting sport. Same with soccer. I mean, they're both similar because it's more mainly back and forth. But again, I'm not as aware of the sports, or I'm not as knowledgeable. So it's kind of hard to make an opinion on them or enjoying to watch them, because I'd rather know what's going on and being able to formulate opinion on my own rather than what these commentators are telling me.
Yeah, I'm big into hockey. They're talking about bringing a hockey team up here. I never played, but I was always afraid of getting hit with a puck. But
those things are those things are tough.
Rubber bricks, yeah. But they're talking about bringing a team to Seattle, so I'm a Boston Bruins fan, but again, I haven't been I haven't had much time to be into anything but football, so I make sure I take Sundays to just watch football on Sundays. I hear you on that. Yeah, you got to. I did want to ask you about something you said earlier that I wanted to go back to, and it kind of tied into what you were saying about strategy and in sports. And you said you had somebody who was into eSports, and so that's something that was never a thing because I'm 30 right now, so that was never a thing when I was growing up. It was I would play
Oh yeah.
video games, and it was, you were told to stop playing video games because you had to go outside. And I'm still kind of bitter about that. I tell my mom, I'm like, I could be fucking ninja right now. I could be a superstar. So, but I got
No,
over
I
it.
hear you.
So is that something that what's your take on esports?
So when my little brother is big into esports, and I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty much ragging on him the same way that your parents were like, you gotta do something else, and I wasn't, I didn't see, because it's like you don't see the physical aspect. Like when I think of sports, you think of physical, using your physical attributes in athleticism, and when you think of esports, the stigma around it, I would say, is just these guys that sit around on a computer console and just play games all day. When in reality, they're kind of just doing the same thing, except it's more mental, it's more coordination, hand-eye coordination. So being able to like talk to my little brother about it, and the guy I interviewed today, and being able to see their perspectives on it, I think it's like I said, it's just opening you up to see their viewpoints and how they view it, because I'm not going to see something the same way as someone else does. And especially if they're experienced in it and this is their goal, this is what they want, they're gonna have their reasons behind it. So that's why I've come to respect it. Again, it's tough for me to call it a sport because I see more sports as physical, but I do understand that it is really tough and mental. So I do consider it as a sport, because at the end of the day, these people are still committing numerous hours preparation every day into their craft, and it is a craft. These people, like the Fortnite tournament, that one kid made like $9 million for winning a tournament.
Yeah.
Like, not many guys in some of these pro sports, like the NHL, for example, I don't see many guys making 10+ million a year. This kid that's not even 18 years old is making 9 million a year winning off a Fortnite tournament. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's time to start erasing that stigma for esports and start giving these people some respect, in a sense, or just start acknowledging them as people that do have a craft.
Yeah. It's starting to become more of a mainstream thing. And
Yeah, like, yep.
I don't know if you got this from your interview or not, but I know G4 was like one of the first. It was a channel that popped up. I don't know if you know what that is, but G4 was a video game channel that popped up, and it would play, clips from video games. It would show you what was coming out, coming new, coming soon. And so that was the first time I had seen people actually watching video games. And now you've got people streaming, esports on Facebook. You've got them streaming it on or not Instagram, but you've got them streaming them all over the internet with major tournaments. And you've seen them on. I've seen it televised now. So it's just kind of crazy how big it's gotten.
Oh yeah, like ESPN, they've televised some pro league games. I've watched one where it was like Overwatch, and they have like legit play-by-play commentators, and I'm sitting here like, why? But it's just about, I think people are starting to acknowledge it, or people are starting to acknowledge it as a sport, and now you're having a lot of people fluctuate to this market that hasn't been tapped into. But now it's like everyone's flooding into it now, and now it's almost oversaturated with coverage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everyone was talking about the stigma of playing video games, and now everyone wants to cover it because that's where all the money is right now, or it's going to be as it continues to build.
So I have a good kind of crossover question for you. Do you ever see, so with the NFL getting more and more concerned with player safety, do you ever see them completely doing away with actual NFL players and just going to like an esports league? And like this would obviously be in like the future. This is obviously would never happen, but because the NFL is a money machine. But this is a hypothetical. Like, do you ever see a world where that could happen?
Honestly, I do feel like a world without the NFL is plausible in the, I don't want to say near future, but I think it could happen. Just, I know they make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I mean, at least I think the product that we all see, it's getting weaker and weaker. Is that you're not seeing the football that we saw years ago with like Ray Lewis. I feel like the league is missing superstars. It's got athletes, you got some household names, but there's no guys when I think of Ray Lewis, you know what he's bringing. There's not many guys, at least on the defensive side of the ball, that you can just think of like right now currently and think of, man, this dude's just an animal out there. It's a quarterback driven league. So mostly everyone knows quarterbacks, but they couldn't tell you two other players on the team. And like I think we're starting to see it now. What happens when Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Eli Manning's pretty much already done. All these older quarterbacks that have pretty much made their career, their legacy, surefire Hall of Famers. What happens when they leave? Who's going to take that next step? I think Patrick Mahomes, I think he's a superstar, but at the same time, is he the superstar in the sense that he's otherworldly actually, let me rephrase that. I do see Mahomes as a superstar, but it's who else is going to take those reins? Where are you going to have those defensive players? When are you going to have more than just one guy? Because NFL is not going to thrive off of just having Patrick Mahomes as their cover boy. They need the Baker Mayfields. They need like Aaron Donalds, Khalil Macks. They just need more added. I think the league needs more of an attitude.
Yeah.
When you think of a lot of these players, I think if the NFL, it's not the NFL. It's a lot more I want to say kid friendly.
So you're saying grown men running around with binkies in their mouth isn't the way that they should be promoting the NFL?
No, at the end of the day, football's a contact sport. This is grown men going after each other. People want to see that.
Yeah.
Why has UFC grown so much? People, it's terrible as it sounds, people enjoy seeing that type of entertainment. They want to see violence.
Right. It's Gladiator.
UFC. Yeah, exactly. That's why UFC is so popular as it is now. Because when you look at it, the bare bones principle is pretty much murdering or beating someone up until they can't move.
Right. Yeah,
football was pretty much.
I was just gonna
like that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. Football was driven just like that until CTE and all these other health concerns, and these players are more concerned about building a personal brand rather than playing for these teams. And you're starting to see it's more of these players playing for them rather than the team. Winning is not as big as an aspect, and that's why everyone's so curious about how do the Patriots win every year? Because the system that they have is something that's worked for ever since football started. They play as a full-on system. It's a system. That's why everyone mentions it as a system. It's not just players on a field. It's a well-oiled machine.
Do your job slogan.
Exactly. It's all it is, and there's no flexibility. You do your job or you're getting the boot.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
So I wanted to react to what you had said a little bit earlier about how you said that the league doesn't have too many superstars, and I think do you play fantasy football at all?
I dabble with it a little bit. I'm not a fantasy football nerd though.
Well, I've played fantasy the last few years. Every year I say I'm going to quit, and I never do, and I really probably should. It's not good for my blood pressure. But what I was going to say was you're right. You can see it when you play fantasy football because it's almost like if somebody goes out, you basically are looking for somebody who can go in and fill in for that player. So if your player goes out and their backup goes in, you're pretty much just looking for them to produce the same amount of numbers as that other person. And most of the time they're going to do about what the starter's going to do, unless it's, somebody who's otherworldly talented, But a lot of these running backs these days only have a couple of years, and then they're kind of back on the shelf. I'm surprised Adrian Peterson's still somewhat doing it. In these last 2 weeks, he's kind of been coming back.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it's going for wide receivers, too, you don't see wide receivers besides, besides Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, where they're doing it for an extended period of time. You only get these guys in the primes for 4 or 5 years. And it's there's no longevity in it, which granted NFL, the average is 3.5 years. But when you think of these superstars, there's not many guys like Julio Jones. You're never going to see him on a cover of a magazine or he's not. He Julio Jones is one of the best wide receivers probably in this league ever, but no one talks about him. like this guy has been an animal since the moment he stepped onto the field, and I doubt that many people know about him because, granted, he's only on the Falcons.
Right.
They've choked. I mean, besides choking the 28-3 lead, what have they really done in Julio Jones' career? Nothing.
Yeah,
Same with
not
Calvin
much.
Johnson. Like, these guys were absolute beasts on the field as wide receivers, and they don't get the coverage at all. But, and think about it. Matthew Stafford gets that huge contract. Calvin Johnson never got a contract like that. Julio Jones got a pretty good contract, but again, no one's giving him any attention.
How do you feel about a player, like let's say Julio Jones is his contract's about to be up. I know they just paid him a bunch of money, but let's say that
No, I get it.
let's say he wants to finish somewhere where he has a chance to win a Super Bowl. I know that's a trend among some players these days. How do you feel about that? That's a newer thing. A lot of people did that back in the day.
No, I think for like a case of Julio Jones, I respect that because that dude has been Matt Ryan's only target for the last 9 years. Julio Jones has been in the league, and Matt Ryan probably wouldn't be one half of what he is now without Julio Jones. So if Julio Jones wants to go and win somewhere, because think about it, he's pretty much accomplished everything in terms of stats, and now all he has to do is win. I don't blame a guy like him at all. He's a good teammate. There's really nothing. There's no bad rapport about him.
Do you
So
think
if he
he
wants to
wishes
go and
he
win
was
somewhere,
Sanu?
oh yeah, crap. Like Julio Jones and Tom Brady, I think that would be better than
That'd be
Randy
scary.
Moss. I think.
Yeah, that might be.
I think like that. Like that's in the air. I don't know how Antonio Brown would have done with Tom Brady, but I think like Tom Brady was a tall target like Julio Jones, and that's faster than Gronk.
Yeah.
You're talking about. That's another animal.
Yeah. I think Sanu will do well with the Patriots, though. I think they'll
Yeah.
probably have him throw some footballs. At some point, they're going to dip into that bag of tricks because he's got a cannon for an arm.
Yeah, I mean, he is a similar like in terms of like body type like Josh Gordon. He's a tall, big receiver that can catch the ball. He's a good complement receiver. Sanu's pretty much been pretty fortunate to play with guys like AJ Green
Mm-hmm.
and Julio Jones for his entire career, so he's been able to learn to be a good complement receiver. If he was with Antonio Brown, if Antonio Brown wasn't crazy, he probably would have been awesome.
Yeah.
I think
I was
Sanu's going to do
bummed about
fine. I think he's going to be that big red zone target that I think the Patriots need. In terms of, I think the Patriots really, if they have a need that they're missing, it's probably just that big red zone target. They don't have a tight end that they can throw it to like Gronk. And losing Josh Gordon is their main target as wide receiver. So I think Sanu's going to be a good pickup. Not for the long term because they did give up a second round pick, but I think for right now, it's the win now situation. I get it. I think it's a good move.
Yeah. And the Patriots are going to have N'Keal Harry coming back too soon. So I'm excited to see him play.
And I think N'Keal Harry, when the Patriots drafted N'Keal Harry, I'm like, oh boy. That's the one team I think that if I didn't want him to go to because Tom Brady, for some reason, it's pretty obvious, but he loves his tall targets. He likes the slot as well, but like guys like Gronk, Randy Moss, the numbers that they've put up with Tom Brady, they're astronomical. And I think N'Keal Harry, stepping into this league with Tom Brady as his quarterback, I think will benefit him greatly, and he'll definitely learn. He'll definitely be a good receiver.
Nice. So as we're getting ready to kind of finish up here, I wanted to ask, you did say that baseball is your second favorite sport, and I completely spaced on baseball this year. I just realized the other day when I watched, was it walk-off home run to get the Astros into the World Series? I'm like, wait, it's the World Series already? So that's where I was this year. I was not paying attention at all. So who's your pick? What is it? It's Washington and Houston this year?
Yeah. So, okay, I'm not a bandwagon, but I was a fan of the Washington Nationals when Bryce Harper was on the team. And when he left, I was thinking, this team can still do it. I like this team setup. Juan Soto is an animal. And I like the team setup. Their bullpen's awful though. It's one of the worst in the league. So that was my only caveat with the Nationals. If they could get some guys in that bullpen to shore it up, I think they're a favorite to go into the World Series. They didn't really do anything. They got some rentals, and I'm like, there's no way they're going to get there. Then they got that lucky bounce against the Brewers in the wild card. I'm like, okay. Then they go against the Dodgers, arguably the best team in the league. Beat them pretty good. They beat them four out of the 6 games, and they went on to the Cardinals and swept them. But the Astros, when you look at the Astros, they have no weak spots. I stand by that. Everyone talks about, they might have a hole there. I'm like, if you have 1 or 2 holes in baseball, you're set. So Nationals won last night, 5-4. But I still think the Astros win, but I won't be surprised if the Nationals win. I think they have the pitching rotation to get it done. They have a good enough lineup to beat the Astros. So I said this before. I can see the Astros sweeping the Nationals, but at the same time, I can still see the Nationals winning in 6 games. I think if the Nationals win, they have to do it in 6. I don't see them winning in Game 7 at Houston. So if I had to put my money on someone, it's going to be Houston, but I do see the Nationals winning. I can see the other side of the coin as well.
So you're saying it's going to be an entertaining World Series?
I hope so. I really do. I think this is it's not your prototypical World Series matchup. Nationals were the wild card team. Everyone pretty much thought they're like, oh, they're going to get destroyed by the Dodgers. And next thing you know, they beat the Dodgers 4-2. Then they go against the Cardinals and they completely sweep them after the Cardinals coming off a hot series against Atlanta, who was my pick to actually go to the World Series. So no, I do think it's gonna be entertaining. You got 2 teams with really good rotations, really good lineups, and I think it's gonna be a good fight to the end.
Nice. Well, Jimmy, thanks for coming on. Do you want to tell people where they can find you, social media, where they can find your podcast, all that stuff?
Oh yeah, thank you. So go on YouTube. We're Sports Avenue. Just type in Sports Avenue. It will be the second account. There's 37 videos. We have 19 subscribers. It's a black logo with headphones. So that's our logo. That's us on YouTube. You can go on Podbean, Sports Avenue Podcast, Anchor, Sports Avenue. Anchor disperses us to Spotify, multiple other Spreaker, Apple Podcasts as well. Sports Avenue. Instagram, you can find us on sports_avenue 440. Twitter is _sports avenue. Facebook, just type in Sports Avenue. It's a Facebook page. So yeah, Facebook and Instagram, I do live streams, trying to interact with the audience. So for everyone listening, if you want to interact with me, ask any sports questions, feel more than welcome to reach out. And especially if you want to, talk sports, more than welcome to DM me. And thank you for letting me plug in my my pages as well.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for coming on again. We're going to have to do this again at some point. I'm going to have to brush up on my baseball, get back into it next season, and we'll do this again at some point. Yeah,
for sure.
I'll let you know when this is going to air. It should be airing, in a few weeks from now. So I'll let you know and give you time to promote it and stuff. So, Jimmy, thanks again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And
thank you for having me, man. I much appreciate it.
And I'll see everybody. I'll talk to everybody next week. See you later, man. Thanks for tuning in to the Itty Bitty Podcast. Thanks again to my guest, Jimmy Simonis, for stopping by and talking sports with us this week. I had a good time. Next week we got some new stuff out for you. Again, make sure if you're digging the show to subscribe, rate, review, share, and we'll be back here next week to check it out. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.